to another episode of the Holton Talks. I'm delighted to say that we are joined by Luke Robinson from Up the Villa. Luke, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Timing probably could have been better off a win, maybe, or a bit more positive. But we've just gotta keep going, haven't we? Keep turning up.
Yeah, no, that's it. Like I said, really appreciate you coming on. Majority of the Villa fan base know your channel. Probably one of the biggest Villa channels out there. So I really appreciate the time. Um, I was saying to you before, I remember watching your videos on Twitter, as it would have been back then, and that's obviously where it all started for you before you launched the channel. Do you want to touch on that before we get into Villa chat?
Yeah, mate. It's just been a good journey, really. Just as a fan, chatting about Villa, I think it comes easy to everybody, really. It's something that everybody's quite passionate about, and it's one of them things, isn't it, where you can go through life and you like certain music or certain bands and it'll change over the years, but Villa is always there. So, yeah, it's quite cool. And it started on Twitter and then it just evolved into like a YouTube channel and just grew it from there, really. So, thankfully, Villa have got better over them years as well. So, I'm not aged too badly, but yeah, it's been really good, mate.
Yeah, I mean, why Villa to start with for you?
Um, I just remember being at my nan's as a kid. My auntie would come round before the games with my uncle on a Saturday, and they'd be dressed in Villa, and they'd go off to the Villa, and it just grew from that. Really, family that always supported Villa. You just grow up with it as a kid, and you just get ingrained with it. Really, you always have the kits and your favourite players on the back, and yeah, it's just something that just sticks with you, and you start going to the odd game, you get a feel for it, and then it just kind of takes over your life, doesn't it? Really, but yeah, it's just I don't know. I like that element of it. Really, I think why people become a Villa fan. I think there's, we all love watching our team, but there's so much more to Villa than just watching it. It's the nostalgia, it's former players, it's the history. So I think it's one of the best things in the world, really, being a football fan. But it's sort of like a football fan that's kind of very connected to the club. Like you get to go and live and breathe it. I think it's one of the best things ever, to be honest, mate.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree. I mean, mine is a whole family thing as well. So when I go, it's my dad, my brother, uncle, cousin, and yeah, like you said, it's just a bit of everything, really. I don't think every club has that kind of element to it, whereas Villa definitely does.
Well, it's to be honest, it's probably something that the club need to keep a hold of because
Yeah,
when they're talking about atmosphere and all of this and the direction, I think of football and especially direction of Premier League, I think tapping back to like the nostalgia thing is really important. And I think, sometimes when I get to go on different things or Sky or radio or whatever, BT, what they really want is the raw emotion of a fan. Like they want the raw feeling of what it's like to be a Villa fan. And I think really the Premier League, etc., could take a look at that because I think when we saw in sort of like COVID times, football's nothing without the fans, but it does feel at the minute that it's kind of like drifting away a little bit. And I think we need to really get it under control, really.
yeah. We'll touch on the atmosphere because I sit in K6 like you do. I'm a bit further up than you, and I'm row 30. Now there is a lot of hospitality around my row. And over the years of me being a season ticket holder, as slowly the people in the rows around me have slowly gone, and a lot more hospitality have come in. What do you make of the atmosphere at the moment? Because I know a few players have come out and said it's not great. I've noticed the last few games it's not been fantastic. You got any like ideas on how we can improve the atmosphere from that respect?
Um, See, I don't think it's been terrible. And I do think that there is an element of the performances haven't been perfect. We're not in perfect scenario where we're all bouncing around and etc. Do you know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
that has an element to it. I think especially with Villa, there is an element of we are all fully aware of the financial situation of the club. And I think that weighs a bit on the fans at times. Like it's in the back of your mind, isn't it? It's like we're watching ourselves lose to Everton. We're watching ourselves trying to beat 10 men Brentford, a goal down. But in the back of our heads, we know that we've got to win because we need to get Champions League football. And I think that element of what's happening sort of off the pitch is kind of there. And I think even though like some fans would go, well, you've got to just forget that. You've got to get behind the team. I think we are. But I think because we know the magnitude of what Champions League football means, I think that's why it's been a little bit more intense. I sort of liken it to say when Brighton first got in the Europa League for the first ever time, it's a feel-good atmosphere. It's like they've never been in Europe before, but we don't have that. We've got something on every single game of football because the expectation and the need for us to get Champions League is there. So I think that's probably why I think the performances haven't been that great. I think that, especially in English football, I think that's massive. I think English fans react to what we see on the pitch. I think some countries, they just bounce around for 90 minutes, not even looking at the pitch, and they're just like going mad, and you're not even watching it. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we're very different like that. I think that we probably should, I don't know, like maybe just, I don't know, like, mate, when we have a bit of a tifo and we hold summer, and there was that couple of games where we used to throw a bit of like a streamer down before, you add a little bit of summer to it, and I think it probably psychologically gets you going a bit more. So, I just think it's a Premier League problem as well. I don't think it's necessarily a Villa problem, but I expect on Wednesday the atmosphere to be very, very good. And then with that, the players have got to deliver and turn up and match what we can bring, really. So I think it's a bit of a collective, to be honest.
Yeah, I do feel with Villa, sometimes the fans, like you said, we go off what we're seeing. And the Everton game, the Brentford game, the Leeds game has not been great because they've come, they've sat in, they've just got bodies behind the ball, hit us on the counter attack. And I think as a fan base, we kind of know that we're struggling to break teams down at the moment. And for whatever reason, we're sticking to the same kind of personnel without really changing it up. And then I think we're feeding off that, which doesn't obviously help. I'll touch on the kind of where we're at the moment in terms of the team and selections and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on it? Because I couldn't believe that we were starting Ollie again, and I love Ollie to bits. You can't knock what he's done, but Tammy should have probably started against Wolves. Maatson being dropped didn't sit right with me. Buendia's still starting. What's your take on all that at the moment?
Yeah, I think when you get a whole fan base saying the same thing, especially the Villa fan base saying the same thing, we've probably got to change something, because we know we all have different thoughts on who should play and this and that. But I think pretty much everybody's saying Tammy, everybody's sort of now saying Barkley, everybody's sort of saying Maatson and Rodgers on the left maybe, and I just think we've got to just evolve a little bit, I think. And I think Emery's just got to move away from his philosophy a little bit. On Up the Villa, I'm sort of saying that over the years, Emery's had different ways of playing with Villa. The first time we sort of had Emery at the start, it was very much game dependent. We would find the weakness of an opposition, exploit it, and defend a little bit, sit in, and we'd win games like that. And then obviously over time, Emery's wanted to build his team and his structure and his philosophy and his identity to what we've got now. So he goes into games, he wants to control every game, but he kind of wants to play the same way. So, we rock up at the Molineux, and it's like we don't treat it like a derby. We don't adjust anything. We just go there and go, we're going to do us, and
Yeah.
we'll just play with the way we want to do. But what's happening is teams are going, well, we're not going to let you do that. We're going to camp in midfield. We're going to stop you playing through the middle. We know you don't really cross the ball, so we kind of might be happy for Sancho to have it. We'll double up on Sancho, double up on the left back. Ollie Watkins, not really a threat, so we'll just let him run off, and he can't trap a ball at the minute, can he? So he's not really a threat in that sense. I imagine every centre half that comes up against Watkins right now are probably thinking, oh, I can get the better of him. I can just muscle him up a little bit and I'll be fine. So I think we've just got to tweak it a bit. Probably maybe let teams have the ball a little bit. Just, we've got, I think as things stand, we've got like the third best defence in the Premier League. So let's use it. We know we can defend. We don't concede loads of goals. So let's just maybe defend a little bit, try and set some traps, alter what we do. I think we've got to give Rodgers more space. I think he's so isolated next to Watkins. We can't get the ball to him. So move him to the left. It'll give him more space to run into. So yeah, I'm not Unai Emery though. So I don't know. He might think that was an absolute disaster, but I think it sounds right and looks right to me and what we're going to do. And I think Chelsea will suit us because they'll come, they'll play, there'll be space, we can exploit it. We're not having to sort of have the ball for, say, 60% possession. So, yeah, I just think that little tweak's needed. I think we're trying to play like we have Kamara and Tielemans, and we can't do it because Onana and Louise aren't Kamara and Tielemans. So we've got to find a little bit of a new way, I think.
I think that is a massive problem, actually, because I think we're still trying to play like we do have Tielemans in particular. And we've touched on it on a couple of episodes that we've done. Ever since Douglas Luiz left, we've not had a player that really drops in between the two centre-backs. Kamara might drop into, say, the right-sided centre-back, but Luiz is the only one that really drops deep between them to get the ball. And I think we're just building up too slow with Dougie. It needs to be a lot quicker. He can't then penetrate the lines like Tielemans does. And we're suffering with Rodgers not getting on the ball. And I agree. I think moving Morgan to the left would give him more space. I'm not sure then who goes in the 10, whether Barkley goes in there and we go that way, because Barkley's done okay in the games that he's played. And we go that way. But like you said, Chelsea will come and have a go at us. So you'd think we would have a bit more space on the counter and stuff like that. Do you think Chelsea's a must-win game due to current form?
I think it's a must not lose. I think a draw would be okay for us. It'd
Yeah.
still be 6 points with 9 games to go. So it's not ideal, but it kind of keeps Chelsea at bay. But again, it's like, is that all we want to do? Do we not still want to kind of finish ahead of Man United? I feel like at the minute, I think fans are really like looking over their shoulder because that gap's just got smaller and smaller. But again, like I was looking at the Wolves game, thinking you don't need much motivation for this game because Chelsea were playing Arsenal. You could go 9 clear of Chelsea, beat Chelsea, 12 points, and Champions League's pretty much done, really, with 9 games to go if you've got a 12-point. But there just feels to be a little bit of a mentality, not a mentality of, I understand we've not sort of turned up at the right moments in certain times under Emery, but there just feels like this lack of ownership and lack of drive and lack of purpose. And again, I look at the Chelsea game and I think, we look like we've got no confidence, but we're fourth in the league. We should relish this opportunity and really put in a good show. So again, I think it's about stepping up. But the thing is, I've been saying this for about the last 4 weeks now. Every game we play, step up, rise. Sort of like Onana. The opportunity is there for you to fill the void, and Dougie Luiz and step up. Everybody just step up because yes, we know we've got these players missing, but now's a chance for everybody to sort of just own it, and it just feels like we're just moping about a bit to me. Nobody's really sort of. I don't know, yeah, it just feels like we just thought, oh well, we got these players out. It's just one of them, Just if we win, we don't. If we, and I'm like, come on, guys, like, because there is this thing, isn't there? Like everybody's saying, well, what do you expect? We got these three players out, but my mentality is you can't just give up. You've got to keep pushing, and I think you look at some of the games we've played, like, we've got injuries, but when we played Everton, they've got no Joy, no Idrissa Gana, no Branthwaite, no Keane, no Coleman, Decimate, no Drewsbury Hall, and we lost to them. And then we're playing Brentford, who are down to 10, and then we let them concede, let them score, and that's just ridiculous in itself. So I think we just got to really just like grow a pair, really.
Do you think this, and I love Emery, I know you love Emery, do you think when the big moments matter, that we do bottle it slightly? Because if you look back kind of throughout each season, the Conference League, we were in a great position. I'm not saying we bottled it, but we threw away a great chance to get to the final. The semi-final against Palace last year, we just didn't turn up. You could go back to the season we got Champions League. I think we had the chance to go top against Sheffield United at home, didn't take it. And then this season, we beat Arsenal. We're in a great position. We have got another chance. I can't remember who we were playing, but a chance to maybe go joint top, was it? Or top. We don't take it. And then slowly teams are obviously picking up form and we're dropping. And every time, Wolves would have been prime opportunity, get a bit of a gap, and then we blow it again. Do you think there is a bit of a mental block there in terms of the club or the group of players we've got?
Yeah, a little bit. I think obviously under Emery, he's took us from relegation to the peak of Champions League football, and even say Europa League. And I feel like along the way we've had to learn off him what it takes to compete at certain levels. So, we got into Conference League, we had to learn as a club how to play in Europe again because it had been for so long. And then we use our experiences in the Champions League. We sort of learning how to play in that. And then, this season you go into the Europa League with all of those learning experiences as favourites. And you've really got to go and win it or get to the final and something similar to that sort of setup. So I think it's unfair to expect us to sort of just win those things, because I think as a club you've got to grow. And you look at Arsenal for a prime example. Everybody don't really like Arteta. I'm not really his biggest fan, but again, they've not just turned into this team, have they? They've had second setbacks. They've had to learn along the way to become the peak team. So what I hoped from this season is that this would be our peak, especially in the Europa League, for example, where we're favourites to really go all the way. So I think that's still yet to be seen. But I think there is a little bit of I don't know whether this comes from Emery, because, sometimes Emery's very control, calm. And, some games where, say, for example, I remember Brentford a couple of years ago when we were kind of like scrapping with Mopai and we got into that sort of like, Emery and Martinez was pushing someone and they were, squaring up and stuff. And he don't really like that, does he, Emery? He kind of wants to strip all of that emotion out of Villa in a way. Whereas I feel like sometimes you kind of need that little bit more emotion to kind of, when I watch Villa, I don't want to watch Conser arguing with the fans at the end of the game. I want to see him arguing with some players on the pitch. I want to see that little bit more fight. I want to see that little bit more nastiness in us. And I think sometimes we're a little bit too nice. And I think that's where I think the mentality thing probably comes from a little bit. Like, we're the most foul team in the Premier League, but we've not had a penalty.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. when we get these fouls, why are we all not? And I know the Premier League rules now, you're not allowed to go up to the ref, etc. But why are we not kicking off a little bit, or we just seem a little bit too nice? And I think sometimes in those games you need to be a little bit nasty. When you're looking at, say, that Wembley one, which I think is the worst one. I think that no-show at Wembley was probably the worst version of us to not just turn up, but it's all a bit nice, and I think you are right. I do think there is a little bit of a mental thing, but I think it probably stems from I think where I'm sort of trying to come from, really, because you don't just get to have that mentality. You got to learn with it, I think. But it is a little bit of a problem that it seems we can be a bit flaky, where I would not want us to be.
Yeah, I think obviously that next Emery's taken us to here, and then to go into that next jump is obviously probably the hardest jump in terms of winning something or getting to finals, and then that becoming normal. The more you do it, the more you get used to it, and like you said, you're then learning on past experiences and all that kind of stuff. The Europa League, do you think we've got we've got Lille in the last 16? Maybe tough side of the draw, but do you think that is something that we can go and win?
Yeah, I do. I don't think Lille are the Lille that we played 2 years ago. I think I've seen a lot of people online going, "Oh, we're not going to beat Lille." They're not the same Lille that we played then. That they've got considerably worse. So I don't think that is the toughest one. I think Roma probably will be tough if we get them, but again, they might not even get through themselves. So, you can't just look at it on paper. But I think the biggest thing for me is the only thing that's going to stop us from winning it is ourselves.
Yeah,
and I think I think going back to the FA Cup game against Newcastle, that's prime example of fine lines, fine margins, one mad moment, and you've ruined it. And that could happen. For example, if that happens away at Lille in the next round, and we lose that game, and you're having to come back to Villa Park and really chase 2 goals, we've just got to make sure that we are inch perfect in these away games. I think we've just got to not lose. I think as long as we don't lose the away game, then we can beat anybody at Villa Park, because you're then saying that they've got to come and beat us at Villa Park. Whereas, obviously a couple of weeks ago, nobody was really doing that. So yeah, and it is a difficult place to come. So I think as long as we sort the away leg out, and we're fine, then I think we can. Because again, I think if you, like you say, if you come through that tough side of the draw, I mean, if Lyon get knocked out of this on the opposite side, there's not really anyone there that really scares me. So, yeah, I just hope we can. And I do think the tempo of Europe probably suits us a bit more than probably the Premier League tempo. I think the way we play in Europe, it's probably like perfect Emery tactics, really. So, yeah, I just hope, because it's been like over 30 years since we won a trophy. So let's hope we do it, mate.
I think it's a good point you make about Emery and the way that he likes to set up, because I think sometimes when we go into a second leg in Europe, we are going to need to just maybe play off the cuff sometimes and just lose a bit of control. And sometimes that gets the crowd going as well. Like PSG game, all emotion went out the window, all control went out the window, and they were just feeding off pure fan emotion, and you could feel the shift in the ground like that night. And I think if we do go deeper into that competition, we're going to need more nights like that, where they're just feeding off what, the whole end and all the other, all the other fans in the ground are giving them energy and giving them that last, like that bit of oomph. Which I think we're kind of lacking at the moment, especially in the Premier League. Obviously, European night's slightly different. I'm just praying as well, mate. It'd be just It's just too long. It's too long since it's been, any kind of trophy. We can't really include the playoff final, although I do. But yeah,
Yeah.
you know, um, I've got a couple of questions in regards to players from a couple of different people. Who would you be looking to move on in the summer?
Oh God. See, I don't like doing this while the season's still on because we kind of need them, don't we? But I think there's going to be a lot that possibly leave in the summer. I think there's going to be a bit of a rebuild.
Yeah,
I think it might be needed. Um,
tip it then, and I'll say who's a definite to keep.
a definite to keep. Oh God. uh, oh, that's a tough one. It's probably even worse question. Kamara, Tielemans, McGinn, Cash. I'd say I'd add Matson, Konsa. Um, obviously like Allison. I do think there's a lot that like Rogers. I
Yeah.
think he goes. I think he. I
Okay.
think he. I think he goes. I think if we don't get Champions League, I think he goes. I think Watkins goes. Martinez goes. Digne goes. I mean, this is a lot of players, but I think you can kind of see where the squad needs refreshing. Onana could go. Um, I think his injuries are a bit of a problem for me, and he's getting to that correct level. Bailey, Buendia. I mean, there's a lot that could go, but obviously they're not all going to go. But there's quite a few.
I don't disagree with any of the ones that you've said. And in our little family villa chat, we've said before, is it worth losing Rodgers for the PSR to do a rebuild? And it's a mixed bag. Some say yes, and some are saying no. Build your team around him, but obviously Champions League is going to be key to Rodgers staying and where we go. In terms of the lineup for Chelsea on Wednesday, do you feel like we should go with maybe a Tammy and an Allison just to give us a bit more energy in the team, or do you think? I know we can't read Emery's mind. Do you think he'll stick to what he's been doing and start probably Bailey, Buendia, Rodgers, or do you think he'll learn from the Wolves game and think I am going to mix it up?
Yeah, I mean that's going to be the biggest meltdown ever if there's certain players in that team on Wednesday. Yeah, I do. I think the reason why I like Allison is I'm not saying you've got to pin all your hopes on a young kid, but I think it would lift the fan base a bit. It would give you that sort of, that sort of like youthful exuberance. Everybody wants him to do really well. And I think he could be primed to do the role. Now, when we played Bayern Munich, Emery started Philogene.
Yeah,
What a wild thing that Emery did. He started Philogene, and could he do the same with Allison? If he's fit, then I think he could. If not, then I'd probably go Rodgers left, Sancho right, Barkley off Abraham. Barkley can drop into the midfield a little bit, shore that area up. That midfield two's a problem at the minute for me. Onana and Luiz. I think, like you mentioned, Luiz is picking the ball up off a centre back, and I just don't think Onana is suited in that Kamara role. I've always felt that Onana is, and I've always thought there's a player there that should be playing further forward. With his power, with his driving ability. So could he go like Bogard, Luiz? Possibly, I don't know. I'd like to see Matson. You got the debate of Pau or Mings. I think I'm still in the Pau camp because I think on the ball he can pick those passes. I think if Chelsea press us, who do I want to be pressed more, Pau or Mings? It would have to be Pau for me because I think Mings, I just don't think he's got that all-round ball-playing capability. So I think the rest of the team sort of should pick itself. But we're in a position where does Emery just keep doubling down on his system and his players and what he thinks, and just keeps rinsing, repeating Buendia, Watkins, and that really. But I think if he does do that, then I don't think we win.
No, I feel like we need a bit of energy in the team, and again, Alisson's obviously had injury issues, but he done more probably in the 5-10 minutes that he was on against Wolves, and not everything he did came off, but you kind of get that sense of he wants to try and do something, and like you said, you get the fans on side; they kind of want him to do well.
It does feel a bit like sorry to cut. It does feel a bit like when Rodgers signed with Alisson.
Yeah.
We didn't really see Rodgers for, say, the first couple of games, did we?
No.
And then he starts feeding him through. And towards the end of that season, he was like one of our main players, wasn't he? Towards the end of that first one. And then he sort of breaks into, I think it was obviously like last season, he breaks in and he's like amazing. So there's probably been a lot of work that's been done on Alisson behind the scenes. And we've just got to probably unleash him a little bit, really. That's probably one of Emery's biggest flaws, really, is that new players, he really takes his time to get them in. I mean, we look at Dango Atara from Brentford. First time he had to play, scored against Villa. Rayan, first start he had in the Premier League, literally walks through our whole team. This, you've got to probably just trust them a little bit, I think, and just let them play with that little bit of raw freedom in a way.
That was another question I got from either my dad or my brother, actually, and they were asking your opinion on why do we sign players and it seems that they either last 6 months or a year at the moment. Is that an issue with recruitment? I know Monchi's gone, but Emery not being aligned with what the sporting director's doing, because we seem to have a high turnover of players, which means our team doesn't really evolve, and we're seeing it now. We've got a lot of players that have played a lot of games, where compare it to other clubs, obviously we haven't really freshened it up.
Yeah, I think we've, in a way, we've been handicapped a little bit with what we try and do because of the rules, and so we've had to work around that. So it's not like we've kind of got ideal scenario and go and sign players and play them and this and that. We've had to work around things, but I think Monchi got, and probably Emery, because you hear all the reports that Emery has the final say on players. And I think the Marlon one was, it's very confusing because, from what's come out of it, it looks like Marlon wanted to leave Villa. So we allowed him to leave because he wanted to be the main striker. Now, when you're looking at Marlon, for the majority of his time at Dortmund and for the Netherlands, he plays on the right. And we never did that. We never really played him on the right. He was always coming on for Watkins. Now, did we just look at Marlon and go, he's second striker, that's all he's going to be? Because we, as fans, we were all like, we want to see Marlon, we want him to play. But Emery was like, no, Watkins. And yeah, they played together once and we beat Burnley. And it just never felt like a fit, did it? But we went out and signed him for a fee. And you're thinking, well, why did we do that if we're not going to play him? And now I'm looking at Tammy Abraham and I'm looking at him thinking, okay, well, you let Marlon go. We were kind of told that you were bringing in Abraham because he's a different profile of striker, that he's different to Watkins a little bit, or he can do some of the things that Watkins can do, but he's still on the bench. And it just feels a bit, we're spending money, and this player's now, what we spent, what was it, just less than 20 million euros on him, and he sat on the bench. But, guess on as well. I wasn't one of those that were hammering him. I think that he's a good player, but we just didn't utilise him properly. We played him on the right-hand side, and he's not a right winger, and he's now flourishing at Palace, playing on the left, playing quite central, scoring goals, looking like there's more freedom. So I think probably it's a little bit of our system that's quite intense. That it takes a lot to play for Emery. But sort of like the recruitment, I do think we could do a lot better. I think there's definitely signings for less money that we could make, and we don't always have to sign like a big name. And I think Alabe, who's come in from Sociedad, is very strategic. But I think we've really got to figure out what Emery really wants his team to look like, and go with it. Because again, like we've brought Bailey back. Buendia's been decent this season, but to me, he's not the answer in this team. And he's
No.
now starting on the left, and it's just all a bit it's like scatty, the recruitment, really. So hopefully Olabe's strategic and gets what we need, because I do agree with a lot of people that the recruitment hasn't been quite right. But I think the big thing with Emery, he wants like the here and now. He wants ready-mades in. He doesn't want to sometimes have to develop loads of players. So I think it's a tough one, but I do think we could do a lot better.
Yeah, because I think if you listen to a lot of the wider media, they always kind of say, "Oh, Villa's recruitment's been really good," but they're only really looking at maybe a Rodgers, or that you might go back a bit further, Martinez and Conser and players like that. But really, if you speak to a lot of Villa fans, I think the turnover of players is slightly worrying. And I know, like, Tammy Abraham's sample size is a lot smaller. But if there was ever a chance that he should be starting, it's when Ollie Watkins' confidence is on the floor and like still sat on the bench. Now I think Wednesday would be interesting. It's against his old team, probably got a point to prove. And I think if Ollie's name's on the starting 11, that will be very controversial. I don't think a lot of fans will like that. And nothing against Ollie, you can't take away what he's done for the club. But at the moment, he looks shot of any kind of player that he's been for the last 5 seasons.
Yeah, I think he just needs to come out of the team. I think it's best for everything, really. And yeah, I mean, if he was scoring goals, he's assisting, playing well, nobody would be saying that he shouldn't be in the team. So, it's not every Villa fan's wrong in saying that we need to switch it up. And I've always been of the mindset, if there's a striker scoring goals, you play him. And Abraham is scoring goals for Villa. He's scored more goals than Watkins in the last couple of games, so he needs to play for me. The weird thing about the Chelsea game is there's 4 players that have played for Chelsea that could start for Villa. You've got Maatsen, Barkley, you've got Abraham and Sancho. So all 4 of those could have a real point to prove against their former clubs. So hopefully all 4 of them score. It always happens, don't it? You always score against your former club. So if we got 4 of them playing,
definitely against Villa that happens. Final question for you, and I'll let you go because I've taken up loads of your time. Where do you think we'll finish? I know obviously the next 2 games are massive, Chelsea and United, but we've got 4 probably favourable home games: West Ham, Sunderland, Spurs, Liverpool's the last home game, and then really the away games aren't that bad other than City. No. Forest, Fulham away, Burnley away. But the next 2 are obviously massive. I think massive for confidence, massive for the fan base in terms of how we feel going into the last, what would be 8 games of the season. What is your heart telling you, and what's your head?
My heart is telling me we get top 5. My head is kind of saying we can still do that. I think we've still got a 6-point gap, which I think is still big. I think, and we beat Chelsea. I think we will definitely do it. In my opinion, we're just a game away from just turning it round and feeling good, really. And what I would probably like is that we get into that period where when Emery sort of goes, ask me at game week, say 34, when he gets asked about the title, well, we're getting into that territory. So I want to see him probably say, do you know what, we're going for top 5, and I think then we all know, don't we? Like, I think probably a little bit of the problem has been, although we know what we're going for, nobody's actually told us. It's like we kind of think we know, but we don't know. Do you know what I mean? Where I think give us the objective that we can really harness. So, yeah, I think we do it. I think if we don't do it, it's an absolute disaster. I think we are in big trouble if we don't. I think it's that big for me that we do it, because it just enables us to continue to grow. It enables us to sign the players. It enables us to bring the revenue. It just enables everything to be better. So it's just so crucial that we get it. So yeah, I just hope they do it, mate.
I think it's a must, and from being in the majority of the season third, if you were then to slip down to say sixth or even lower, that does become a really poor end to the season. My one saving grace, I think, is the teams, especially United. I can't see a world in which United win every single game from now until the end of the season. So they've picked up a bit of form. Fine, they're playing well at the moment. Chelsea are a bit inconsistent. Liverpool obviously picked up, but at some point, Villa should pick up and start winning games again. And hopefully, the other teams that we're going against have a slight dip, and we can just about squeeze in there. Might be wishful thinking, but I'm trying to be positive about it.
Yeah, no, but I think just looking at some of like Chelsea's fixtures, they've still got to. So they've got to play us. They've still got to play Newcastle. They've got to play Man United, Brighton away, Liverpool away. They've got Spurs, which probably could be a tough game, and they've got to play Sunderland away last game in the season. So some of their fixtures are tough. They're playing Man United, so one of them's gonna drop points. They've still got Liverpool. One of them's gonna drop points. So you got to kind of look at it that way as well. That if we can kind of capitalize when they're playing each other, that's going to help us at the same time as well.
Yeah, just fingers crossed we can put a bit of a run together. I think what we're on 51 points. If we can get another 5-6 wins, you'd like to think seasons gone by that would probably get us top 4, top 5. And hopefully we have a bit of good luck on the last day or something like we didn't get last year, and we sneak in there. But in Emery, we trust. He's earned all of our trust, so we can't really go against him too much. But it's a massive period, I feel like, now in his tenure, and the squad's tenure, and can we really, step, like you said earlier, step up, puff your chest out and really go and get a result on Wednesday, and then end the season well and put a bit of we need some smiles on faces again. It just seems a bit doom and gloomy at the moment, doesn't it? So
yeah, I'm fed up of moaning, mate.
hopefully we can start it off Wednesday and go
Definitely.
on a right. I think that will do, mate. Like I said, thanks for coming on. One of the biggest fan channels out there in the Villa world, so I appreciate the time. And thanks for watching, everybody. Up the Villa from me.
Up the Villa.